Bitcoin. What is Bitcoin actually worth? How bullish am I on Bitcoin? What is my bullish thesis? We've all heard Bitcoin's going to 100,000, 250,000, a million, 5 million, even 10 million. I've even heard higher prices than 10 million. I've also heard that Bitcoin's going to go to zero. It's worth nothing. It's going to crash and everyone is going to lose all of their money. But what is it? Well, on my channel, you guys would know that the truth always lies somewhere between the hyper bull case and the bear case. And it's uncovering what the truth is to really understand what Bitcoin is going to be in the future and what Bitcoin is really going to be in terms of the valuation, what it really will actually mean to us in the future. Is it going to be the storage of all our monetary energy and become 10 million per coin? Or is it going to be more like a digital gold? Or is it going to be something different? Is it going to be more fringe? Or is this all a Ponzi scheme and is it going to be worth zero or something along those lines? These are questions that we really have to analyze and kind of come to our own grips with what we think Bitcoin will be. And it is good just to have somewhat of an opinion that kind of goes somewhere in between the hyperbull and hyperbear because both cases are very unprobable in terms of occurring, and the likely scenario is definitely somewhere in between. So it is good to have a nuanced opinion, a nuanced approach of where we see Bitcoin going. Did we hit a top yet? Is Bitcoin going to go crashing down soon? Is it going to go a lot higher than it is right now? Bitcoin is having positive news very frequently. We have some negative news in terms of regulation and cracking down on some of the altcoins and things like that. But in general, the news that has been coming out has been pretty positive in terms of adoption, in terms of interest, in terms of the new players that are stepping into the crypto space because there is a lot of money to be had and made in cryptocurrency, whether you're an investor or whether you just want to be one that distributes or holds and borrows these type of assets because we have Coinbase coming into the market and Coinbase is going to have a huge IPO and there's a lot of other companies and a big opportunity in this space for people to capitalize on, and there's no reason in a lot of cases for these companies to not adopt this to make money. If you're just trying to make money, why not adopt and make money in terms of being able to let your customers use this to a certain extent, have more customers because more customers will come to your product. And so we're seeing this snowball effect where Bitcoin is becoming a bigger and bigger space. And so this is definitely a bullish case. On the technical perspective here, we are seeing some concerns. We're seeing some cracks. We're seeing some things that are not something we want to be seeing in terms of if we want price action to be going to the upside, that is. So we're seeing a breakdown in price as of late. So we'll be keeping a close eye on what's going on with Bitcoin. Now, if I were to make a line in the sand of if we went below a certain line, it is time to turn pretty bearish. I would say if we went back down to these levels that we saw over here, I would be pretty bearish on Bitcoin. And how bearish would I be on Bitcoin exactly? Well, the question is here is that it's not that I think Bitcoin is going to go to zero if we go below this. But if we go below this line right here, I would expect Bitcoin probably to go maybe to 25K, for example. So a massive drop from 30K to 25K, and if not even lower potentially. The floor at the moment for me is definitely going to be around 20K. That's kind of the floor. Maybe we dip barely below 20K for an instance, but that's kind of where I see the floor at the moment for Bitcoin. And so, where does that take us to where Bitcoin is going in the future? And what is my thesis, and why am I invested in Bitcoin at the moment? There is a lot of risk in terms of the downside we could go, but I've been also talking about Bitcoin ever since we were under 20K, and most of my buys have actually occurred under 20K. So my cost basis right now, and I've been averaging up this whole time, it's between 20K and 21K right now. So some price between there is my current cost basis. So I'm okay waiting in this for now to see where we go. But I do think that this line right here is an interesting line to be watching, and that's depending on if you're trying to preserve capital, or it's also if you're trying to jump into Bitcoin for the first time. Maybe you're waiting on the sidelines. This would be an interesting opportunity if we broke this line here, because then you could try to look at maybe 25K or something like that to jump into. This is not financial advice. Okay, now my bullish thesis on Bitcoin. I am not one who thinks Bitcoin can replace all the monetary energy in the system and that it'll become this 10, $15 million per coin if it assumed all that responsibility. I think there's flaws with Bitcoin. I think there's limitations with Bitcoin in the moment. There's things that just, it's not efficient in many ways. But beyond those things in general, when you're investing in something, you are assuming risk. We are assuming risk with assets that we invest in. Right now, when you're investing in Bitcoin, you're just speculating and you're assuming risk, thinking that it's also going to be something much bigger. That's fine. But it gets to a point when Bitcoin fills the shoes that it's meant to fill and what its place in the world actually is going to be. Whatever that place is in the world, we don't exactly know what Bitcoin's going to be, but let's say it fills that role of digital gold, or let's say it fills the role of all the monetary energy stored within Bitcoin. Once it does these things, this is not something that's going to be rapidly expanding after that. It's already got to the point of where it was trying to go to, because assets and investments in general, they provide you essentially gains for assuming risk. And you're assuming risk in a company, for example, that you think that's going to grow in the future. But the risk of that company is that it could not grow in the future, it could go bankrupt. There are many different things that can happen with this company. So you're assuming the risk with the hopes of gaining a lot from your investment. Or if you're lending something to somebody, you're going to get some interest, but that loan could default. So you're assuming risk to gain more on your money, essentially. So Bitcoin has a few issues in terms of when it becomes this thing that it's going to be. Why would it be such an attractive investment? It wouldn't be an attractive investment when it becomes what it is trying to become, if that makes any sense. And people that think that Bitcoin in the future will constantly gain at a 15% clip, that doesn't make much sense to me in terms of mathematically, it doesn't make sense to me on a risk reward basis. It's like you're just rewarding those who are just holding money. And in that scenario, it's the monetary system. Why would you be rewarded for just being a regular participant in the monetary system and disincentivized? Essentially, you're in that world. You're essentially, and this is a world where Bitcoin is all monetary energy. Why would you be incentivized just to hold cash and not invest in assets? And this would cause a problem and an issue for companies that are trying to raise capitals, for people who are trying to buy a house, for all of these things who are trying to gain money and gain other people's capital. Why would they give you their money if they can leave it in Bitcoin and grow at a 15% constant rate, for example, if not more? This would not make any sense. Plus, this would hinder and destroy the economy, essentially, in my opinion, just looking at this kind of logically right here. Now, having said that, so there are some holes, in my opinion, in the uber hyper bull case, but there are a ton of holes in the bear case as well. And I do not think that Bitcoin's going to go to zero. And I do not think, again, I mentioned already that I think the floor is, a little bit under 20K is the floor essentially at the moment. And this has mainly to do with the institutional interest that we've seen and the kind of buyers that we've had around here, that it'll be kind of difficult, I think, for us to pierce this area of consolidation. Can we get back to this area right here? Absolutely. There's no reason why we can't go back down here. We haven't had a lot of strong buyers here. If you're talking about volumes and how many people were in this run right here, there isn't a lot of volume in this run here comparatively to the other areas in terms of where most people are sitting in their Bitcoins and where most Bitcoins were bought. So we have to be aware of where Bitcoin is being bought. If we're just looking at this right here, this is pretty bearish. We're looking at some pretty bearish price action here so far. So we're definitely in a corrective state right now. And this is a question if this is going to continue or not. At the same time, this right here doesn't look too different than maybe this period over here so far. And knowing that this period right here was more consolidation and ended up being positive, this isn't extremely concerning yet. Can this become more concerning in the future? Absolutely. If we start to see something more like this here, this is extremely concerning here. If we see something more like this over here, this is very concerning. So basically, we can start to see a pattern here in terms of what was going on there, and even seeing something similar of what happened in 2017, 2018, and try to avoid something like this consolidation. We don't want to be in something like this. That's going to end up going even lower. So we want to pay attention to what is going on in the present and make some smart moves and kind of analyze this if the risk to reward is worth it right here. Basically, the play that I'm making and the kind of the bullish reason why I am in Bitcoin is because I do think that Bitcoin is going to be an asset that people want to hold. I think it's going to be this digital gold. Now, when I say digital gold, do I think that it's going to get all of the monetary energy as gold? I don't really know. I don't exactly know if Bitcoin should be worth more than gold in terms of market cap, or if it should be worth less than gold. It should be something. It's not something that can be directly comparable to gold, in my opinion. It's just different. Gold has other use cases that Bitcoin does not, in terms of you can wear gold. You can do a lot of different things with gold that you can't with Bitcoin. And kind of vice versa in some ways, but Bitcoin's utility is kind of lacking at the moment, at least. You can do several things. I mean, you can use gold to technically buy some things probably. It's very limited what you can do with gold, but it's also very limited what you can do with Bitcoin at the moment. So mainly it's a speculation. Now, what that speculation should actually be is up for debate, and it is not clear. It is something that I think that is going to be higher than this, but I'm not sure how high it's going to be. My immediate price target for this is a little bit under 50K in terms of where I see this in the near future. And I do think that if we have a correction in the stock market, we're going to see Bitcoin correct even further. So we have to be aware of that. More volatile and risky assets generally sell off even more when there's a sell off in assets in general. So we have to be aware of that. I do think that this year, 2021, is going to be pretty bullish for Bitcoin. And for me, and this could be very conservative for most people, my price target for where I think this could go if the bullish thesis plays out. Again, we don't go past certain levels and we continue on this uptrend, this can go to maybe 100K. I could see that. And this is kind of, I don't know if it's going to be exactly 100K. It might be less, might be more, but I'm not really seeing like 250K for the year of 2021. It's definitely possible, but I'm not really seeing this, 5 million, 10 million case. I don't think this is going to capture all the monetary energy. And there's a few reasons why I think that it is not the case. It's also just has to do with the scarcity of Bitcoin. The scarcity of Bitcoin is interesting in terms of being able to store your value and have something that if people like it, then you're interested in collecting it. But the thing is that when people are losing their Bitcoin and losing hard drives, and this is kind of happening in the news, and you're seeing this all the time, that people are literally losing Bitcoin and they're losing it forever and they're getting removed from the system. So there's not really 23 million coins because that number goes down and down as Bitcoin is lost forever in terms of physically lost or just the passwords have been lost. So Bitcoins have been removed from the system. And this makes it a very interesting dynamic in terms of a very inflexible thing. We can't get necessarily more of it. And in addition, there's no forgiveness when you lose your Bitcoin. So this is an interesting thing. Whereas if you're doing something with money in the current system, there's always going to be some type of forgiveness for any type of loan, except for the arguably the worst type of loan, which is student debt, which there is currently no forgiveness and there's no in terms of accountability in terms of anyone giving you something and promising something in return for something. You are basically shackled to your student loans. And I'm not saying that student loans should be just paid off or anything like that. I don't really have too much of an opinion either way. I'm just saying that it is interesting because it's different than a mortgage or a loan on a car or a loan on a house or a loan for a business or a loan in many different regards. And you can default or file bankruptcy for most of these cases and you can't on your student loan. And your school basically has no risk involved in issuing a loan in terms of a government loan. The school is giving you an education, whether this education is good or not good, and it gives you a good career or doesn't give you a good career. And this is arguable on both ends of whether it is very valuable to your life or whether it's very not valuable and overrated. This is a big question. But the main point here is that there is no risk to the lender, and all the risk gets assumed on the individual that doesn't even have a fully developed prefrontal cortex. So this is an interesting thing here that we have a system of this loans. The main point of this argument is with Bitcoin, this idea is when the coin is gone or lost, it is done. That is a new additional risk involved here where it is unflexible that it can be forgiven in some manner. So this is an interesting thing to just be in terms of the counter of being a full-on currency. And this is why I remain more nuanced in terms of I don't see this as taking over the whole monetary system. I don't see this as a long-term play of this is going to be some bullish scenario for over the next 10 years. Technology also has a way of constantly innovating and finding new technologies that can do new things that are beyond what we can even think of what's going to happen in the future. And because of that simple fact of technology alone. And this is an idea of why some people don't like even investing in tech stocks, that I don't agree with that, because I don't think that we have to think too far in the future in terms of what companies are going to disrupt other companies. We just got to think of right now what companies are disrupting other companies, not the companies that are going to be disrupting the company that's disrupting the company in the moment, if that makes any sense. But the main point is that we're looking at the here and now, thinking of what's going on. But Bitcoin is an interesting scenario where, okay, we'll invest in Bitcoin. We'll join in on this run up as a quote unquote digital gold or whatever it is in terms of, and then what the valuation it becomes from the market, trying to determine what the value should be for this type of asset. I'm bullish on Bitcoin. But once this happens, will there be something else coming down the pike? And we've seen so many cryptocurrencies be introduced already. A lot of them that are very useful and have a lot of utility. And so are any of those going to end up taking the place of Bitcoin? And is Bitcoin going to be a dinosaur in the future? This is something that's just hard to know and hard to be aware of. And is there going to be a whole new set of technology that doesn't even exist or even resemble what we see right now in 5, 10, 20 years? This is absolutely possible. Something that's super efficient, that's mind-blowing, that takes this to the next level. It's very possible. Well, I'm going to end this right here. I hope you guys got some value from this content. And if you haven't already, smash that like button, subscribe to this channel for more content like this, and I'll catch you guys in the next one. And keep in mind that none of this is financial advice. This is just some random guy on YouTube drawing some stick figure lines on a chart talking to you guys.